you move
How's it
forward.
going, everybody? Magnum Knights here, and
Thank
we're
you.
still covering the
Guys,
Pokemon
we'll be right back after
World
a quick
Championships, where my friend Ayumu is
Hello,
competing.
trainers. If you enjoy playing
So,
the Pokemon games
if
and are looking for a new
you're sorry,
challenge,
I've missed
why
a
not
match
consider entering
while
the
I was
Pokemon
speeding
Video
home
Game
to get onto
Championships.
my main PC here. But
Video Game
we're going to
Championships
go
use a
ahead
special
and
battle
just
format.
let them do the
Bring a
talking.
team of
I'm
6
going to mute my
Pokemon,
mic after this.
choose
It was
4
a
of those for the
huge
match,
upset
and attack
victory
using 2
for
Pokemon
Giovanni,
at a time.
where
That's
he had
called a
but
double
one
battle.
move left to make. He made it in. It all panned out.
Team
We're talking
preview is very
a
important.
10%
This
chance
means the battle
victory
against
he
your
turned
opponent starts
into
before
a
the
victory,
match even
winning the
begins.
series 2-0.
You know
So,
what your opponent's
again,
6
this is
Pokemon
Magnum
are,
Knight
but
saying,
you
see you
don't
guys
know
in the
which
next
4
one.
they'll be
I'm going to
choosing
keep
using
recording
the
this for
upcoming
you.
match.
Later, guys.
Choose 4 of your Pokemon carefully based on what you would think your opponent might do. Get inside their head. And now the match begins. It's a 2-on-2 double battle. Half of your chosen team is immediately out in the fray. What do? Do you ask each of your 2 Pokemon to attack, to protect themselves, switch out, or to lend a helping hand to their partner? Will your opponent focus their attack on one of your Pokemon, or throw out a combo attack that targets both of your Pokemon? Whoa, didn't see that coming. In a double battle, your Pokemon's moves can target either opposing Pokemon. Some moves target both Pokemon at once. There are even attacks so powerful that they hit everyone, including your own Pokemon. However, the attacking Pokemon's partner can use its typing or abilities to avoid that damage. You can also use certain moves to help your ally. Remember this, and don't be afraid to get creative. That escalated quickly. Each turn, the fastest Pokemon to the fore will move first. It's important to keep track of how fast each Pokemon might be. Moves that inflict status conditions such as burn, paralysis, or sleep are powerful. Make sure your team has a way to deal with them, or you'll get overwhelmed. Pokemon abilities can be extremely useful in a double battle as well. Compared to the single battles you might be used to, battles in the Video Game Championships are very fast-paced. A player could have all 4 of their Pokemon knocked out in just a few turns. Play strategically, but remember you only have 45 seconds to make a decision each turn, and 15 minutes total for the entire battle. In the rare event of a match timing out, the player with the healthier team wins. Is your team strong enough to take on Arceus? What about 6 Arceus? Don't worry, you'll be safe from its judgment. The mythical Pokemon you may have received from special events cannot be used in the Video Game Championships, but this year, most other legendary Pokemon are allowed to participate. They are known as restricted Pokemon, and only 2 Pokemon from this category are allowed in your full team of 6 Pokemon. There are also rules ensuring no 2 Pokemon or held items on a team can be the same, so expect to see some variety. This short video is only covering the basics. Keep watching the World Championships and check out the players demonstrating the more advanced techniques, such as speed control, predicting your opponent's next move, defensive switching, ability combos. Planning a strategic Video Game Championships ready team can take a lot of work, but there are fantastic resources available to help. You can test out your teams right from home using the Pokemon Global link. When you've got a battle-tested team at the ready, head to your nearest regional championships. Get more information about tournaments at Pokemon.com/playPokemon or about Pokemon strategy at Pokemon.com/strategy. Good luck!
Hello trainers and welcome back to the Pokemon World Championships 2016, live from San Francisco, and you are with the Ray J combination. My name is Jay Blake, this is Ray Rizzo, and we're really excited to keep going in the World Championship.
Yeah, we are. That's quite an intense match we just watched. We saw some unique, not only Pokemon, but moves. We saw the Eruption coming from Groudon. Of course, we saw Scrafty. We saw the red card on Amoonguss. So we saw some really interesting things last match. Certainly a great start to the day. Makes me more excited to keep watching and keep casting these games.
As the European representative on the commentary team thus far, I kind of feel like we need to talk a little bit about the red card, a little bit about those eruptions, because that's something that's been bred in Europe. Arash Marty was using Special Groudon for a very long time on his winning team. So his German nationals winning team uses a special variant of Groudon in which he was using Eruption and Earth Power to pick up key KOs onto other opposing Groudon that might be physically based. And also, Red Card became extremely popular. There was Mark Duo in Italian nationals was using a Red Card Ditto. So Ditto would come in onto the field, pick up the boost from a Xerneas, then take a hit and swap out the opposing Xerneas. Lots of control on the side.
Sounds very interesting. Sounds like it's very inconsistent too, but it sounds like it's certainly got the potential to be very good.
This man was incredible. So he was actually the top of the battle spot ladder for most of the season during Italian Nationals, and then he actually top cut Italian Nationals as well. He was using a really strong Mega Rayquaza Choice Scarf Kyogre team, but the thing is, when you look at it, it was a Mega Rayquaza Choice Scarf Kyogre team, but he never Mega Evolved Rayquaza. He'd have Kangaskhan in the back, Talonflame, Ditto, and Smeargle. He'd usually just lead with Choice Scarf Kyogre and Smeargle, and he was incredibly skilled at just making sure that Kyogre could be put in the best position to get massive damage off.
Yeah, we don't really see Choice Scarf on Kyogre so much because it has that Primal option. But Choice Scarf gives it the speed it needs to be able to outspeed the likes of Salamence, Rayquaza, even just be faster than something like a Xerneas, so it can get its really powerful special move off before it gets the Geomancy off. So it's certainly an interesting option for Kyogre. I don't know if it's the best option, but it's something that can throw people off guard, and certainly it's good. Whether it's great, that's up for debate, but it's at least good. It's at least usable.
For Italian Nationals, a lot of players did opt to go for this Choice Scarf, and there was a very hard rise in Rayquaza and Kyogre, but the Choice Scarf option did give a lot of players really good positioning to make their way further into the tournament. But going back to Mark's Ditto and this red card, again, as you say, an inconsistent strategy. You have to really time when you want to bring the Ditto in to make the most of its switching ability. But this is something that we saw from Cody just earlier in this tournament itself.
Yeah, similar to the idea of Choice Scarf Kyogre, where it's not something that's really consistent. Maybe in a best of 3, it's not so reliable. Similar, just like Red Card. Red Card is not that reliable. You can't control which Pokemon gets switched out. Your opponent kind of controls when it's going to activate, especially after they find out that it has Red Card. So it's really only something that'll work once. It's just kind of risky. And we saw in that game, too, when Koki had only Smeargle and only Xerneas left, that made Red Card completely useless because there's nothing left to switch in. So it doesn't matter if Xerneas would have attacked that Amoonguss, it wouldn't have had to switch out and lose its Geomancy boost. And then we saw in Game 1, Kangaskhan got replaced by Groudon, which was even more threatening to Cody's field. So Red Card, just not something that's consistent. Probably a better item for earlier in the format when we had regionals and a lot of best of ones. But for an environment like Worlds, where all these matches are best of 3, it's such a long tournament, you need that consistency, and I don't think Red Card gives it to you. But looking at Amoonguss, we see here it's 6th in the ranking for items. It's not really that common at 4%, but it's certainly something that has been picking up steam as the format has progressed. But now that we've gone to Worlds, it has kind of trended back down as more of a gimmicky option, something that's just not consistent or reliable enough.
I think it puts a lot of pressure on the player to make some really grand predictions for what his opponent will do. It's all about learning the timing of the match and when it's safe to bring a Pokemon like Amoonguss in, or Ditto if you're Mark Duo. But Markus Statter of Germany, who's a really strong performer. He's had many national titles and also was one of the European commentators as well. He won a grassroots tournament with an Amoonguss using Red Card, and I think in the right player's hands, it can be quite deadly because it just turns the momentum in your favor.
Yeah, and it's a lot more devastating, I think, when you switch it in, because then you have a little bit more control, but again, you're still guessing, because if you switch it in on a Geomancy Xerneas, but let's say it goes for a Moonblast rather than a Dazzling Gleam, and maybe that Moonblast targets the other slot, well, now maybe the other Pokemon is wasting that red card since it's a one-time use only item. We have seen red card pop up on some other options that also resist Xerneas moves to try and force it out. Things like Heatran. We saw Wolf Glick use it at US Nationals. Didn't really perform that well, but you know, it shows that it has potential. We saw it in Japan Nationals on Talonflame. I think one or two of the top 8 players did try red card on Talonflame. So it's definitely got some potential. I don't know if it's reliable enough, because Japan Nationals, it's a best of 1 event, at least until you get to the top 8.
Yep.
So in a best of 1 format, I love red card. I think it's got tons of potential. In a best of 3 environment, I'm not too sold on it. And it seems like most of the players competing feel the same way, because again, it falls 6th, only 4%. Mental or something much more consistent. Citrus Berry as well, Lumberry with how common Sleep is, even Cobra Berry to give you an extra turn to threaten Spore, or a Rage Powder, because we see how common things like Talonflame, Salamence, Rayquaza are. So I just feel like red card just not reliable enough. But Amoonguss itself, great Pokemon. It's very bulky. We saw how many Moonblasts it could take from a Geomancy Xerneas. Rage Powder gives you so much support. Spore, of course, very annoying, and it just draws out the battle, as we saw in Game 2. So Amoonguss is definitely a good Pokemon. There's other options that it does have. If you go to the moves real quick, there is a move Clear Smog it gets, which also can threaten Xerneas. Not that it does a whole lot of damage, but it will remove all boosts, and it is another move that we started to see pop up a little bit. I think in US Nationals we saw it on stream a couple of times. It hasn't made a big splash yet, but maybe this will be the tournament where we do see it make a big splash. Clear Smog, not super common. We see only in 16% of Amoonguss, but it is number 5, so it is that move that's knocking on the door to make it into Amoonguss's 4-slot moveset. And being able not only to lower Xerneas' boosts after the Geomancy, it can use it against Groudon Swords Dances, Intimidates, or so many things you can use Clear Smog on, even if it's not against the Xerneas. So it's a cool move. Again, it's, you know, you can't use it all the time. It's only in very specific situations that you can use it, but it's an option.
I think this is one of the things that Amoonguss has found for itself in this format. It is one of the Pokemon that can deal with Xerneas. I think this is why people are pinning their hopes with red card onto Amoonguss, because it comes in, it resists, it's naturally bulky anyway. It's got the option to use Grass Knot to be able to do some significant damage onto both primal Pokemon as well. And so I think the option of having Cody choosing the option to have that red card there was just I don't like Xerneas. Okay,
Yeah.
like the Geomancy scares me. I want to make sure that I can control when the opposing Pokemon have boosts and when they don't.
And for good reason. You can see why he did, because he had Rayquaza and Scrafty, 2 Pokemon that do not do well against Xerneas at all. He didn't have a Groudon, which is probably the most powerful counter to Xerneas because of how good it is in resisting Xerneas' attacks and being able to hit it physically. And then the rest of his team, they weren't really great Xerneas counters. Like Thundurus can Thunder Wave it, it can taunt it, but it can't really, do much damage to it. It can't really do a whole lot other than that. So I do like the idea of having that kind of extra insurance against Xerneas that Cody had in the red card. So you can see why he chose that item on Amoonguss, and you can see why some players do opt for the red card on Amoonguss, but it's just more reliable to go for something like a Groudon or a Steel type. Even Clear Smog, I feel, is more reliable, but it's definitely a cool item to see, and I expect to see a little more of it this weekend, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, maybe we'll be able to see some more in day 1, but maybe it won't make it all the way through to the finals or into the knockout tournament, or knockout part of the tournament.
Yep, and maybe it will. Who knows?
Yeah, no,
maybe
this is the excitement of Worlds, isn't
right.
it?
Maybe it's a Big 6 team with Talonflame, and they just throw red card on it as kind of that tech choice, and that's just enough to propel them into the top cut. Who knows?
That would be so hype. It would be amazing. This is the thing about World Championships. If you manage to have one tech that you can hide for the majority of the tournament, or save for when you really need it in a big best of 3, it can really put you on the path to winning.
Yeah, especially if it's unpredictable. So if people come in expecting to counter your team, maybe they see that kind of Groudon, Xerneas, Salamence, Kangaskhan, and they expect it to be, they know what's coming.
Yep.
And then you throw a curveball at them with something like a red card Talonflame. Maybe that's enough to just win the game.
This is the thing. We mentioned it earlier, but when you see 2 teams facing off against each other that have the majority of the same Pokemon, the ones that are the most popular in the format, obviously having a hidden tech move or item is quite an extreme way of changing up that matchup a little bit. And more likely, you'll just see that the trainers have trained their Pokemon differently or just chosen slightly differing movesets. But this is still super interesting if you're into competitive Pokemon battling, because you get to understand the player's playstyle, you get to see how they think their process is through, and it's basically chess. It's so strategic.
You have to think a number of turns in advance in these battles, and not only that, when you're team building, you're also thinking in advance because you're trying to predict what everybody else is going to be using for this tournament. So not only are you thinking turns in advance in the battle itself, you're thinking like way in advance when you're actually planning these teams to build for Worlds, because you don't know for sure what they're going to do, just like you don't know for sure what's going to happen in the battle 4 turns from now, even though you plan for a whole bunch of different possible outcomes. It's the same thing when you're team building, and that's what's really interesting to me when you see players, even if it's standard-ish teams, they usually try and throw some kind of curveball in the team, some kind of tech choice. Maybe it's the way they've trained their Pokemon, maybe it's the items, maybe it's the moves, maybe it's even a Pokemon itself. Like we saw Sajin win with Pachirisu. Who would have thought that years ago?
I didn't. I certainly didn't at all.
Yeah, that was crazy. So there's always things you can do to kind of throw a unique option on your team. And that's always what I'm most interested to see, because I love the creativity that players have. I love seeing what they've come up with for this big, prestigious tournament. And that's what I'm most excited to see this weekend.
So speaking of creativity, speaking of being unique, Ray, did you manage to catch any of the Latin American nationals that we saw, that we didn't get to see on stream, but they happened? So lots of different national events happened in Argentina, Chile, Mexico, lots of different Latin American countries. And I think one of the key words to take away from those nationals is creativity.
Absolutely. I did not catch any of the battles, but I saw the teams that these players used. There were some very creative, very interesting things. There was a Credilli that made, finals, I think?
It came finals, yeah.
Credilli. We saw Mega Altaria.
That was in
we
Chile.
saw Seismitoad with a Jellicent. We saw so many cool, just unique things that you never see. And these Latin American players, they are new to the VGC scene. Latin America hasn't been a part of this VGC scene until recently, so it's really exciting to see them here all this weekend. They're so hyped up. If you heard the opening ceremonies, they went crazy when their flags were all shown. They are so excited to be here because for a lot of them, it's their first time.
Yeah.
And so, they want to show the world just how strong of a region they are, how much creativity they have, and they just want to show their best. Hopefully we get to catch some of them on stream this weekend because, boy, I met some of them earlier this week at Worlds, and they were all just so excited to be here. They had so much emotion. They were so happy. It was so cool to see just how much fun and how enjoyable these players were having at Worlds. And the Latin American players, you can definitely rely on them to bring the excitement to this tournament.
Exactly. I mean, you mentioned the opening ceremony, and I think they cheered the loudest, apart from the US, because obviously home ground advantage.
Right. So it's biased.
Yeah, but
other than the US,
Team Argentina, Team Chile, they've been. You can see them around in San Francisco, and they all look so happy to be here. They're having such a great time, but also they're here to play some Pokemon. And they've also been picking up on, I think in Mexico, a lot of Rayquaza and Kyogre teams, which fits well into what happened in Italian nationals as well. So they're on point with their metagame choices as well. I mean, they're trying out different teams. They're trying to be creative. I saw some Mega Manetric teams making top cut as well.
Yep.
And that's something that had a lot of traction early in the UK. It didn't make its way to UK Nationals too much, but in the regional scene, there was a lot of Mega Manetric. But they're trying out all these different archetypes and trying different ways to make sure that they can take on the big two, Groudon and Xerneas.
Yeah, so even though they're newer to the VGC scene, they've completely kept up with the metagames, completely kept up with what is likely to be at Worlds, and they've come prepared. They certainly were prepared throughout their various nationals, and they look pretty prepared this weekend from talking to them. So I'm excited to see how they do, and I really hope we get to cast a couple of those matches.
Me too, Ray, me too. So, guys, we're going to kick it to a slightly longer break now, but make sure to keep up with all the Pokemon action and PokemonChampionships.com. And we'll be back soon with round 3 of the World Championships live in San Francisco. Don't go anywhere.